Hello and happy Monday. If you are watching the live stream, welcome. If you are new to me, I am Soul Coach Michelle, your manifesting coach and your friendly neighborhood super woo. And the reason I am excited today is because this is my first live stream into LinkedIn. I have no idea if it's working. Anybody who's worked with me knows that even though I'm a quick student of technology, I'm not always right out the gate on it. So I hope it's going into LinkedIn. The third party platform that I use said that comments won't post to LinkedIn. So I don't know if that means I am not able to see them or I'm not able to post them. So whatever. So if you are on LinkedIn and you want to say hello, make sure that you post below or post in the comments if you're on YouTube, which is kind of where I'd rather everybody be because it just makes it real centralized. Um, Go ahead and there's a live chat if you're looking at the screen, it should be on the right. Or if you're watching the replay, it's below. And if you're on Facebook watching this, everything is kind of below. So, and all the links are above. So we're using a new deck today, which is different. Not new to me, but new to you. I'm going to be using an Abraham Ask and It Is Given deck today because the energy for this week needs a bit of, there's a lot. There's a lot, you guys. So last week, before I jump in, I have my notes over here. Before I jump in, I do have a couple of announcements. One is I am renovating my website, so it kind of might look like a hot mess right now, but I'm moving it over to a new platform and restructuring some blog stuff, but also restructuring certain offerings. So you might see some wonkiness if you visit online to the website. But if you go to Manifesting with Michelle with one L, notice that down here, one L Michelle. If you go to manifestingwithmichelle.com, that is where the new website will be. You can go check it out. It's not for a preview. It's not totally done yet because there's probably like continuity issues and stuff like that. But if you want to go check it out, you can. It'll be fully finished, hopefully before April 1st, which is, I don't know, like what, Friday? So there's that. But there will be a shift in how I do things for energy's sake. So anyways, good morning, Katie. Good morning, Tori. Thank you guys for joining me. And I noticed that the little platform tells me that you are on YouTube. I'm so excited. That's kind of where I want to hang out. So even though I am streaming into Facebook and LinkedIn right now, where I do want to kind of hang out a lot more is on YouTube. So that will be forthcoming in addition to the weekly Monday energy readings. So let's get to the energy readings because holy MFer. Um, so last week we talked about how the energy was going to be a little bit of a roller coaster, and I thought it might be like this, but it ended up kind of being like this. So you guys, I want to start let's recap because we're kind of going on Thursday into the new moon in Aries, which really is the kickoff of what all we learned in the last 3 months, which was kind of like a recap and revisit of the last 2 years. But it was much more like, okay, you processed, you went through it, let's process it. So processing is not necessarily fun, but necessary. So Q1 was all about who am I? What do I value? How do I value myself? What am I believing in? What are my core values? All of this, right? We had Mercury in retrograde, Venus in retrograde. There was a whole lot of opportunity for us to kind of slow down and look at everything and be like, what do I want to keep? What do I want to let go? What do I want to renovate? All this business, right? So it invited us to kind of really dig in and figure all that out, which isn't always necessarily fun, but it does move you forward. And that's the blessing. So if we can look for the blessing and the miracle, we're good. So in that, they then kind of went direct and we started to pick up this shift, this forward motion, right? And so you started to kind of be like, I may not know exactly where I'm going, but I'm now going forward and I'm going to kind of step with it. And with that forward motion, it was almost like when we decide to make changes within our lives and we decide with those changes have to come a shift in boundaries and a shift of how we conduct ourselves and who we need to be to step into that stuff. The folks around us are like, whoa, wait 1 minute. What is going on here? This is not what I want. And we kind of see a shift in relationship. We see a shift in what's going on with the folks around us as we all navigate that new space because they're doing the same thing and we are too. And a lot of times, what comes with that is you see people doing things and navigating with their own journey in ways that may or may not align with you anymore. And that's okay. Again, that's a challenge. But this is kind of the sorting that happened in Q1. And now, as we kind of approach April, which starts on Friday, which from what I understand from all of the astrologers that I follow, the energy that's going to flow into April is gentler, which is nice, but we got to get there. So we got to get there. But in this next week that leads up to this Aries new moon. So what happens in this week? This week, even though last week was kind of a hot mess, and I wrote down what Spirit dropped in as an analogy for last week, which was if I have a friend, he grew up in Italy. And if you've ever like seen any videos, and if you haven't, I'm sure they're on YouTube or wherever, where you can look at traffic circles in Italy. Like technically there's lanes, but like nobody stays in them and they're all going like 100 miles an hour and nobody ever tells you where you're going to and they're going to hop off and go off in a direction. So when we think about it, you know, the timelines that we are all choosing that I've been talking about for the last several weeks, everybody kind of chose their timeline last week and they're like, okay, this is where I'm going. This is what I'm going to do. And last week, or rather in Q1, that's what happened. And then last week and this week is the implementation. It was like last week, you're in the traffic circle deciding which way to go and navigating while everybody's doing their thing. And this week is kind of like, wait a minute, this person who has been in my life for a long time, relationship, Venus, hello, is going off away from me. So it's almost like we have to learn to lovingly release the stuff that doesn't serve us, but also the people, not that so much don't serve us, but who have served their purpose, whether they're transitioning out, whether they're transitioning into a different timeline, you know, depending on all this kind of stuff. Just understand that this is kind of that funky, frenetic time frame where all of those things happen and then the decisions and consequences. Now consequences aren't always bad. You can have good consequences. You know, you buy a lotto ticket and you win, that's a consequence. Or you buy a lotto ticket and you lose $1, that's a consequence. As we navigate making the decisions that are most aligned with ourselves, a lot of times there are consequences in our relationships. They may shift and rise to a higher level, they may go away, but that inner space between the old and where we're going gets a little dicey. So with that in mind, we got to kind of think about what did we learn and what seeds are we going to plant? So I'm looking at my notes of channeled stuff from this morning. And some journal questions that you might want to take down. And by the way, if you're not on the mailing list for the newsletter, that link is in the blurb. I send out the replay with this with all the stuff in writing. So if you don't take dictation, which I do not, if you're on the newsletter list, you get all of the journal prompts prompts every week in the newsletter. So make sure you sign up if you want them. But I have a couple of journal prompts this week for you for different sections because we are in that transition. So thinking about everything that you have gone through in Q1, which pretty much is like, you know how like when we were in school, you'd read a whole chapter and then there'd be a summary and then like a quiz. So we are in like last week was the summary. Q1 was kind of the summary of what we learned 2020 and 2022. And then last week was kind of like okay, here's your cliff notes. And this week is kind of like the quiz and getting, Thursday we get our test back and decide what next lesson we gonna do. So with that in mind, be honest with yourself and say, journal prompts, where do you want to go now that you've processed this ginormous amount of stuff? Like, really sit down and take some time with this. Like, where do you want to go? What are your new goals? And they don't have to be start a business or get married or get divorced or whatever. They don't have to be these ginormous goals. They might be stuff like, I think I'm going to start walking more, or I might start eating more healthfully, or I might start my yoga practice again, or I'm willing to start doing these things. They might be smaller goals of bigger goals that maybe you set at the beginning of the year. Like, especially for those of you who participated in the Reconnect, Align, Manifest workshops that I've held, where you do your core values and then base your goals on them. You have to make little bite-sized goals. And this is where we do that. Look at the big goal that you kind of have clarity on, or maybe you have clarity now on, and then break them down. What do I want to do? Where do I want to go with this? Now that I've processed all this shit, where do I want to go with this? So the next journal prompt is, what do you want to do with what you've learned? So it's, where do I want to go? And like, what do I want to do with that? Okay. And then when you have those goals and those intentions and those kind of feelings out around your value of others, how others value you, your work, yourself, whether it be your home life or in your office or business life, that kind of stuff, it's all relationship oriented. So, where do you want to go with that now that you've processed stuff? What do you want to do with what you've learned? And then lastly, the last journal prompt around this is, what do you need to implement to show the universe, which is you internally and externally of energy, because you are an extension of source energy. What do you need to implement to show the universe that you mean business? So this is your action plan. What do I need to do to take these little baby steps? Do I need to hire a coach? Hi, I'm accepting new clients in a month. So message me if you need to have like a conversation about coaching. Or maybe it's, I need to spiff up my resume. Or maybe it's, I need to join a gym. Like, what are the steps that I need to do? Do I need support? Do I need to just do? What do I need to do what do I need to implement to take those steps in those goals? Okay. And you're going to have to really be honest with yourself, because that's the only way to do this, to navigate this. And I want to be clear. April, is looking kind of like it's more loving and fun and much less serious than what we've been experiencing, but we have to get there. And you want to enter that space from the perspective of, okay, I am clear, I am ready to plant some seeds on Thursday, so come like next week, I am good to go. So, I don't know about y'all, but the energy of last week and this week has generated some like outbursts, Oscars much, that are, I do want to say this. I do want to say that the whole here's my truth and here's my consequence concept, I think people are learning to give a voice to their feelings, which in America, I know Julia. Hi, Julia. She's living across the pond. I don't want to speak for other countries, but in our country, a lot of times it's frowned upon giving a voice to your feelings. So when we do have these emotional things rise up, it's challenging for most people, especially men. I do want to give a shout out, because men especially are told not to feel things. And so when you do have a lot of feelings, we tend to have reactionary behavior versus response. And that's number one. And number two, I do want to mention, when we look from the perspective of kindness versus judgment, always look, even if you're involved in a discord or something where maybe you did have a fiery outburst and then later you're like, oh shit, maybe I should have not done that. Remember that when we kind of don't navigate things really well, it's usually because there's some sort of like repressed stuff going on. We're holding in things and then we have an outburst. So that's number one. The second thing is look for things beyond the obvious. So last night's Oscars are a great example. After I'm the kind of person that I'm like, that's really out of character when somebody does something really out of character, but you have to look beyond the immediacy of that little kind of tweet moment. What was going on? Um, and from what I've read, now I can't speak for everybody, and I'm just using this as an example of the energy that we're navigating when the whole Chris Rock Will Smith thing happened, which I watched live with everybody else. Um, I think what went down was, and this is just me speculating. Again, I have I'm not involved in any of these people's lives, but in watching from a more 360 view, it would seem to me that um, Jada Pinkett Smith has alopecia, which is something where your hair falls out, not just the hair on your head, but your eyebrows and other things. It's a symptom of this particular illness or condition. And because of that, she's been very, using her celebrity to heighten awareness, which, is a good thing. And I think there was maybe a disconnect in awareness. You ever see this? Disconnect in awareness can cause discord where somebody who was trying to make things light wasn't in awareness of what was going on and made kind of a comment that under normal circumstances before we shifted into Aquarius maybe would have been like let go and made by the wayside, but we had this kind of interaction happen where it was very triggering for Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith and Chris Rock to have this interaction last night. And if we kind of come out further, I'm not justifying anyone's actions by any means because the entire situation probably may have been handled a little differently. But like I said, when we're in that fiery energy of not giving voice to our feelings for a very long time, and in some cases, a lifetime, that repression can explode. And that's what I think we witnessed last night on a lot of levels. And I want to invite everyone to, since that was such a globally witnessed event, to kind of sit down and say to yourself, okay, where is this happening in my life? Where is it where I need to be um, in awareness of not just my own situations and my own feelings, but also those around me? And I'm not saying we have to be so trauma aware that we accept responsibility for things that we couldn't possibly have known about. But what I am saying is, if somebody is out there very open about something that went on for them, not poking them in a mean way is probably a good idea. So being kind and compassionate. And I think honestly, the blessing and the miracle, which we need to look for, the blessing and the miracle of this was or is going to be ongoing, that people are a little more compassionate towards each other, even in humor and comedy. Because if you notice, a lot of times comedy can be funny without the expense of other people. We can make silly inside jokes or even bigger jokes, but understanding that being compassionate in the public realm is really important, as well as being compassionate with each other and with ourselves, so that we do give voice to our feelings, so that we do have that awareness about, you know, when we say things and what we're saying and how they might affect other folks. And then also, lastly, you know, just moving from a pace of a place. I am not doing well with the speaking today. Moving from a place of compassion versus empathy. Empathy is where we take on everybody else's feelings and try to fix them. That's not part of our journey, y'all. Keep your eyes on your own paper. Empathy is like, we can be empathic and it's a great thing, but not when it complicates your own journey. Okay, so I am one to opt for compassion, which is sharing kindness and putting love out to people versus trying to take away their pain. I mean, that's a whole other video. But that said, as we navigate this, I think that microcosm of last night is a great example of understanding um, the need for us to honor our own feelings so we don't have those kinds of things, and honor each other's journeys so we don't have those kinds of things. It doesn't mean that anyone is condoning anybody's behavior, but we can have compassion for both sides. Okay. In the sense that, maybe Chris Rock was not aware of why Jada Pinkett Smith had shaved her head, which is, in a self empowerment thing for her, or which to that point, her husband then stood up and, felt the need to handle the situation. So, you know, I could go on about this. I'm sure there's stuff in the media that is less kind. So as we look at this as a a bigger global thing we all witnessed, think about within your life, where am I being judgmental of something where I could be a little bit, or just 10% more kinder. Let's put some numbers on that. Just 10% more kind to each other, even when it's on the surface seeming to be not super awesome. So how can we do this? This is another thing. Again, sign up for the newsletter if you want this in writing so you have it. Um, how do we dance in this energy for this week so that we don't have those kinds of outbursts with the people that we love? Because, you know, usually it's the people that we love. We always think about it's like people we don't like that we get into it with, but the people that we love are the ones that we really get into it with because we feel like they can take it. But we're all just here, and being compassionate with ourselves and with others is going to support your relationship versus like have it be a dumping ground for your shit. So to do that, to make sure that you're not doing that, aside from excuse me, aside from reaching out and asking for help from either a therapist or a coach, um, depending on what your needs are, my recommendations for people for this week would be keep your eyes on your own paper as much as possible. Stay your own journey. Don't get involved in other people's shit. I brought up the Will Smith, Chris Rock thing only because it was such a global thing for us all to kind of come together around and use it as a tool to teach. But when, you're navigating your life, kind of like you're writing on your paper and you kind of look up and you're like, oh, there's a shit show over there. I'm just going to come back here because I got enough work on my plate. I don't need to be looking or getting involved in other people's crap. Excuse me. My throat chakra is extraordinarily dry today. I think it's allergies too. Um, the second thing is if someone comes for you, like they're coming and picking on you, they're having their moment and they're using you as the dumping ground for whatever reason, look beyond the obvious. Try to kind of just say, you know what, I'm going to extricate myself from the situation in whatever means I need to do so that I can be centered. I'm going to choose not to be a part of your storm. But when you kind of are away from the situation and you're having thoughts, because I don't know about you, but I always think about that kind of thing. Look beyond the obvious and seek some understanding, not condoning of bad behavior, but more what went on, what is the truth, why maybe were they so triggered. Their response or reaction may not be good behavior, but there's a reason they're doing that. And sometimes if we can understand that, we can be a little bit more compassionate, not condoning, compassionate in how we choose to experience what went down. Okay. Then number three is strive to respond, not react, which can be challenging in the moment. But I think if we can be more mindful and more aware, that helps. And how do we be more aware? Meditation. Meditation, meditation, meditation. I know I throw it down everyone's throat, but it is the one way. And I love this because Dr. David Hamilton, in his book, Why Woo Woo Works, he talked about how meditation was much more a tool for awareness than it is for mindfulness. Yeah, mindfulness is a side effect, but awareness gives us that in between the inhale and the exhale, that moment to go, I have a choice here of how I want to show up and to make that choice. So that's kind of what we're getting at here. So those are the four things that you can do over the course of the next week so that when we get to April, your dance card is blank and ready for names to be put in it so you can party all night long, rather than showing up with a list of to-dos on the amends list to make amends with somebody that maybe we had a reactionary moment with versus a responsive, compassionate moment with. Okay. So I did pull out, because I always do a card or cards. I pulled the Ask and It Is Given deck, which, if you like Abraham, or the teachings of Abraham. I love this deck. I have two. I have one that's like totally about money, and then one that's just kind of more general. So I wanted to pull a card because I think we do need some guidance around who kind of showing up in a time that is very transitional in energy, which means letting go of old belief systems and striving to embrace new ones. And all of the, nobody likes change. Human beings only kind of change in a reactionary way. So it's like you got a lot of folks who are trying to navigate that and thinking maybe they've done all their work. It's almost like Gabby Bernstein when she's like says stuff like, when you think you've surrendered all you can, go ahead and surrender some more, because there's a shit ton more for surrendering to happen there. So I'm going to pull a card for us and see what we need to know here. So my question for this week for Spirit is, what do we need to know to support ourselves as we strive to refocus, ask ourselves, what is it we want to bring into this new month? What have we learned? And what maybe a better question is the cheat sheet, because if we're talking about the last 2020 and 2021 being the lesson, and then Q1 kind of being the summary of the lesson, and then these last 2 weeks leading up to the new moon on Thursday is our quiz to make sure we got our shit straight. What is a study crib note that we can have that would support us as we do our quiz this week? So let me see. This is interesting. I love this. Okay, so the cool thing about this deck, just so you know, so this is what the cover looks like, in case you're looking for it. And again, the link is in the thing. But on the front is kind of like a statement, and then the back of the card is a longer explanation. So I love this. I must be selfish enough to align with well-being. If you are not selfish enough to deliberately align with the energy of your source, you have nothing to give away, or rather, you have nothing to give anyway. Some worry that if they take too much of the pie, others will be left with nothing. While in reality, the pie expands in proportion to the vibrational requests of all of you because of the law of oneness. If we're all one and we're all eating off the same pie and we're creating and baking the pie at the same time, we always make enough pie. And by the way, this is so funny. Last night, we went to Publix and I bought a peach pie. So I got lots of pie downstairs. But I think the word selfish is where we get caught up. So if I may, to help support people, maybe we shift that word to honor. We honor ourselves enough to deliberately align with the energy of source. And it's really interesting because source is not an external thing. You are an extension of source energy. So it's almost like, think about it this way. Right now we're all watching on various devices. And at some point you have to plug that device into the wall or on a chi thing to charge it. It's all energy, right? So at some point the devices have to jack into the grid so they can align with the energy and get charged. You are no different. You are an electronic independent being, right? That's chosen to show up in the 3D and kind of explore the other dimensions that we have right now, while also being one all the way back to source energy. Because I am one with you, even though you guys are across the pond in the UK or on the other coast of the United States, on either coast. I think we have New York and California and London here with us. But no matter where we are in the world, the fact is that we are all one extensions of source energy in different manifested forms. So if we can honor that and take up that space and align with that energy, plug back into source energy, that's where we will be gifted um, to align with our own well-being, which is what we need to do so that we can be more responsive. We have to align with our own well-being and change our vibration so that we are allowed, and not allowed from an external source, but giving self permission to give a voice to our feelings in a compassionately assertive way so that we don't have these kind of truth or consequences moments that I think maybe people have seen all the way through. Like, I've seen it in my own household. I've heard from other friends, and a lot of it is this transitional energy into balance of the masculine and the feminine from this whole old kind of Piscean idea. But if we can align ourselves and honor the light, that's the concept of namaste, which is the light in me honors the light in you because we are the same. So when you can align that well-being energy within self, everything expands. There's not this finite notion that we have in the 3D of like, oh, well, you know, if I eat this pie, there won't be any pie left. No, there's always more pie. Always. Spring's always coming. The peaches are coming. It's all good. So, what I will say to you this week is honor yourself with compassion and alignment into your well being. Align that understanding that if I do that within self, it expands out to other because the energy goes both ways. I plug back into source, and thusly, I am plugged in with everybody else, and we are all giving love back and forth. So, with that said, this week, honor your light, honor others, love people, even the guy that cuts you off in traffic in the traffic circle. Send them love because they probably need it. Um, and do your journaling and sit down and meditate. Get your butt on Insight Timer. Yes, Tori, I love it. Tori says, I feel called out on that meditating thing. Yeah, I'm talking to you, sister. Get back in your meditation kind of plan. If you have to set a reminder in your phone, do that. Create a space maybe for that so that you can start creating more awareness. So you have those moments where you can choose versus react. Okay. So that's it for today. I hope you have a great week. Pardon me. 2 minutes over. Sorry about that. But I felt like there was a lot going on this week, especially with like the example of stuff that's happening out in society that we all have witnessed. But know that I've sent you love. I love you so much. Quick reminder, if you do want to book a session with me, just kind of message me either through any of the social media platforms you're seeing me on right now. Because the website, you might be able to go there and book a session, but I think because I'm renovating stuff and shifting from one platform to another, that might be a little wonky. So it's always better to just send me a little note and then I can send you a direct link to that. So, but other than that, if you are interested in coaching, send me a note. If you're interested in self-paced courses, they are located. You can find them. I think there's still a link there on the Soul Coach Studio, or you can check out a preview of the new website at Manifesting with Michelle with 1L right here, 1L, Manifesting with 1L Michelle. Because I haven't figured out how to forward the other one if like you do misspell my name. So please spell right and you'll get there. And .com. And I think that's it for this week. Other than that, I will see you next week. And until then, I'll see you in the vortex. I love you guys so much. Be selfish with your energy. Be honoring of your energy. Take the time you need because no one will give it to you. So take up your space. Okay. Love you so much. Mwah! See you soon. Bye-bye.